In this section, I'd like to go over the basic HTML you need to make a web page, and we'll also take a look at the first HTML tags that we can use to format the text content. To get things started, I'll just go over to our Section 2 Basics folder, and inside I'll open up the first page.html file in my text editor. One other nice feature if you're using Notepad++ is that when you right-click on any text file, you can see there's a handy option to open up the file with Notepad++. So I'll be using that with each file we work on for the rest of the lessons. Here in the file you can see that we have a little bit of HTML code, and what you see here is almost the absolute minimum code to make a proper HTML5 web page. For starters, I'd like to use this page to go over some basic concepts that we use in HTML. First off, you might have heard the term tag when referring to HTML code. A tag is simply an instruction to the browser on what to do. Each tag is located in the brackets that we see here. And the first word inside the brackets is the name of the tag, and it instructs the browser to perform some specific function when it renders the page. Here we see an HTML tag, here's a head tag, and we've also got a body tag. Now you'll notice for most of these tags we have two versions of each tag. The first version of the tag starts out the instruction, and the second one, with a slash before the name, this one is used to close the tag, which means to finish the instruction. Anything inside the two tags is the content that the instruction will be working on. It's easy to see this on the title tag. The content inside the beginning and closing title tag is web page title. So we can easily see that will be the title of the web page. Many of the tags have their own contents, and you can clearly see that for some tags, like the head tag here, the content inside it contains other tags. These are called nested tags. Now for this basic page, you can see that almost all of the tags are nested inside of an HTML tag. Many web developers will use spaces or a tab to show when one tag is nested inside another. So I'll select all these other tags inside the HTML tag, and I'll press the tab key. Now also, the meta and the title tags are inside of the head tag. So I'll select those two, and press the tab key again. And now it's a little bit easier to see which tag is inside which other one. Now the main rule about nesting tags is that if you open a tag inside of another tag, you should close it inside the tag as well, as you can see is done here with the title. Now most tags do have a closing tag, but as you can see a few tags do not, like the meta tag here. Generally these tags are a single line instruction and they're referred to as void tags since they don't have any contents to work on. For void tags like this one, you can add a slash at the end of the tag. This is also sometimes referred to as a self-closing tag. Now for HTML5, these slashes are completely optional, so it's up to you whether you want to include them or not. Now one other basic HTML rule that we can see with the meta tag is it has an additional part to it. Here, when you can see char set equals UTF-8. This is called an attribute, and they allow you to add options to the main tag. Attributes are always placed after the main tag name with a space in between. And for each attribute that you choose, you can set that option by using an equal sign, and then you put the value for the option into quotes, just like this one. Some tags can have several attributes, but you simply separate each one with a space and add them into the tag. And the attributes can be in any order you like. Now obviously there's a lot more tags and attributes we're going to learn as we go along. But for right now, I want to go over each of these tags so we can understand what they're doing for us. First, you can see a special tag up here at the top. The doc type tag looks a little bit different because it has an exclamation point before the name. And it always needs to be placed as the first instruction in the document because it tells the browser what kind of page we're making. If you look at some older web pages, you'll see that there are several doc type tags in use mostly for previous versions of HTML. This particular one tells the browser that our page is using the HTML5 standard. So we'll use this doc type tag for every page we make here. Next in the document we have the HTML tags, and those mark up the entire page as our HTML content. These will typically go around the whole page since all of our page will be made of HTML5 instructions. Now inside of the HTML tag, currently we have two other tags. We have the head tag here at the top, and we have the body tag down at the bottom. The head tag is where we set up the page, and it contains instructions that don't appear on the viewable page itself, but they control how the page will be viewed. In this case, the meta tag is used to tell our browser that our page will be using the UTF-8 character set. Now there are several other character sets you can use, but this one includes nearly every character in almost all languages. Things like letters, numbers, punctuation, but it also includes many different symbols. For instance, one you would use in math equations, or for common currency symbols like the $sign or the euro sign. Unless you have a really good reason to use another special character set, you should almost always be using the UTF-8 one. So again, we'll have that on every page. The next tag is the title tag, and it just sets out the title for our web page, which in this case is web page title. Now this won't actually appear on the page, but it'll be used as a title, and it will most commonly appear in the browser tab up at the top. It's also the text that will be used if your user makes a bookmark of your page to come back to later. Next, the body tag contains all the viewable content that the user will see when they come to your page. So for this page, we should see the sentence, "Web page content goes here." Now this document has everything you need to make a valid web page, but obviously it doesn't have a lot of content. But let's go take a look at it in the browser anyway. I'll just go back over to the Working Files folder, and I'll double-click it to open up in the browser. The first thing you'll notice is that none of our tag instructions are visible at all. And for this simple page, we only see what's inside the body tag, our main sentence here at the top. If you look up in the Browser tab, you can see that the title shows up properly. And if I click the star to make a bookmark, that title is used there as well. Now let's go back to our first page in the text editor, and we'll go over a few other basics that are helpful to know while working on a page. One important thing to understand is that in an HTML document, the white space is handled a little differently once it's viewed in the browser. By white space, I mean blank lines or spaces. To see how this works, I'll add a few blank lines to the text that we have, right here in the middle of the sentence. Then, in between the last two words, I'll add in a bunch of extra spaces as well. Now, when I save that page using Control-S or Command-S if you're on a Macintosh, and then we go back over to the browser, the first thing I'll do is refresh the page so that we see our new changed code. Now, as you can see here, those additional lines and spaces haven't changed our page at all. When a browser renders our HTML, it will basically ignore any blank lines or extra spaces, and all of that empty space will show up as just one space in the document. Now, another basic thing that developers often want to do is to add a comment to the page to mark some particular place in the code, but we don't want our viewers to see the comment. For that, we have a special comment tag. I'll go back to our document, and I'll add a comment here right in the middle of one of the blank lines. Our comment is still a tag, so we still need to use the bracket, but instead of a name, we'll use exclamation point dash dash. Now you'll notice that Notepad++ puts a special color on that so we can easily see a comment when it's inside the code. We need to finish off this comment tag, so here at the end of my comment statement, I'll add dash dash and then I'll close the bracket. And now you can see by the green color that the comment is just confined to that one line. Again, I'll save this page using Control-S or Command-S for the Macintosh. And I'll go back out to my browser and refresh the page. And once again, we really have no change to the visible contents because the browser is going to ignore the comment when rendering the page. So as you can see, it's a great way to mark up a part of your code or leave notes to yourself or some other developer that might be working on the page later. Now the last basic HTML rule I want to cover is that for our HTML markup, the browser is not sensitive to the case of the tags or the attributes. That means I can write my tags in all capital letters if I want, and the page will still work the same. Now you will find some developers who like writing this way because it makes the tags stand out a little more inside the code. From my experience, as you start to work with more tags, it won't take very long to recognize them in your documents. And you probably won't need to slow down your typing with the extra effort required to press the Shift key all the time. As you look at other developers' HTML code pages, you'll notice that it's common to just stick with all lowercase letters for both tag names and attributes, but you can see what works best for you. I do, however, recommend being consistent in whatever you choose. Either stay with all caps or all lower, and it'll make your pages much easier to work with. Now, one more thing about naming conventions I want to mention is file names. Our files will end with either HTM or HTML. But you'll notice that for the pages I created, I usually use a dash instead of a space when making a name. Now, you can name files whatever you want, but when a space is used as part of a file address, it can look a bit messy and also be confusing. If I go over to the browser, you can see that the end of my file name is quite readable. But in the early part of the folder name, where I have section space 2 space basics, you can see that instead of showing a normal space, we see here %20. And that's a special code in URLs that represents a space. It still works, but it looks a little bit funny when you're reading across. So to eliminate the confusion, I simply use a dash or an underscore character instead. And that way your page addresses are a little more readable to both your viewers and also to search engines as well when they're creating a listing for your site. Well, now that we know some of the basic rules of HTML and we see what goes into a basic web page, we're ready for the next section where we'll see how to work with more web page content.